is the 8th part of the series of messages on Guidelines on the Choice of a Marriage Partner and Christian Courtship, preached by Brother Gbile Akanni. For further inquiry or counsel, do contact the Discipleship Department, Peace House, P.O. Box 971, Boko, Benue State, Nigeria. Telephone 044-470-824. May God bless you as you listen.
Shall we pray together? Our Father and our God, we are so grateful to you for the privilege that you grant us to look into your word once more. Thank you for this particular series of studies, especially on the issue of choice, the issue of proposal, and the issue of courtship in Christian marriage. We want to pray, Lord, that as we go on today, your Spirit will bring us illumination, and you will cause your word to mix with faith within our hearts. We pray, Lord, that there will be guidance for your children who are seeking to do your will, even in marriage. Thank you, Lord, for hearing us, for we have prayed in Jesus' name. Amen. I welcome you back to the continuation of this series of studies on the choice of a life partner and Christian courtship, up to the issue of wedding. By our last study, I was dealing with the objectives or the purposes that courtship can be applied to achieve. And then I began to discuss on the way to approach it, the conduct of courtship itself. And I did say that there are 3 levels at which the joining together of a brother and a sister towards wedding must take place within the period of their courtship. And at the period of courtship is that period that precedes the time of the actual consummation of matrimony. So what do we achieve with it? It is that things that we can do together ever before the day of wedding must be achieved during the period of courtship, so that the wedding itself could be a takeoff of the marriage life, and so that the issues that we could have dealt with will not begin to prop up like bombs in your relationship. So by the time we are concluding, I already discussed the joining together of your spirit. And I did say that out of these 3 levels of joining, the spirit, the mind, and the body, the spirit is the hub. The spirit is the bone of the relationship. The spirit is the crux. Actually, is the structure. It's like the skeleton on which everything else surrounds. Now, if the joining together of your spirit is not adequately pursued, your marriage will lack a proper structure. Even all the principles that we would have loved to advance in the manner of the principles of godly marriage, they all hinge on the fact of your spiritual life. So I did say, and I still want to say today, that the first and the most important joining that your courtship should be applied to is the joining together of your spirit. Your courtship must help each one of you to develop a deeper spiritual walk with God. Dear brother, let me say this. If you help the sister you want to marry to grow more spiritually, to hear God more freely in the spirit, and to discern the things of God more freely, and to be able to receive spiritual things more freely, it is to your advantage. It will release all the grace and all the endowment of God in her life for you. And dear sister, if you allow and if you help your your fiancé to develop spiritually, to catch a glimpse of the purpose of God, and to grow in the vision that God is setting before you as a couple, it will be to your greatest advantage, because then you will have a man who is sensitive spiritually, with whom your spirit and his spirit can freely flow. You can freely enter into worship without any quarrel. You can freely study the scripture and get common revelation that will help your life together. But it is during the period of courtship that we begin to develop that. Now let me say a word before I leave that. The development and the coming together of your spirit does not end with the period of courtship, but it begins from there. Actually, the becoming one flesh that will be a continuous, pursuit in your married life will still follow these three lines that I'm talking about. First, your spiritual journey, then the journey of your mind, and then the journey of your body. These three levels of journey, let it begin from the courtship, but then it will progress even in your marriage by the grace of God. But please note that I did say that there are some level of this journey that we cannot embark upon during your courtship, which I will discuss in the course of our sharing in this particular session. Now, can we go ahead now? So I want to look at the joining together of your mind. And I would like us to read few passages. Now, I have quoted over and over again Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. I would like you to turn to Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. Now that is a very important passage which I would like you to keep at the back of your mind even as we go on. Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. Amos 3 says, Amos 3:3, please. 3:3. Can two walk together unless they are agreed? So we are discovering now that marriage, which is a working together with a brother in life, not just to a church meeting, but the rest of your life, the rest of your journey, until death do you part, is what you are about to enter into. So the Bible says, can two walk together unless they are agreed? So the issue of agreement, the issue of marrying, that means bringing your lives, bringing your ideas, bringing your vision, bringing your ambition, bringing your taste to marry each other and become one, is a process which we are saying courtship should begin to address by the time you have started to be engaged. Now, but the passages we want to study today is in the book of Philippians. We will be trying to study Philippians chapter 2 and Philippians chapter 4. Now, I'm looking at the joining together of your mind. Now, let's look at Philippians chapter 2. If you're already in Philippians chapter 2, we would like to read, I'd like to read from verse 1. I'll read verse 1 down quickly to verse 4. Therefore, if there's any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out, not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Now, whereas this passage will be necessarily applied to every relationship, especially in the body of Christ, in the church, I want to say to you that whereas there are so many brothers and sisters you will meet with in the fellowship, The truth of the matter is that you may afford not to even have one mind with them because you are not compelled to go together for life. But the brother, the sister that you feel God is leading you to get married to is someone with whom you must walk for the rest of your life. Then it means that these instructions becomes a compulsory issue for you to understand in your relationship. It means that these instructions become a necessary thing that we need to pursue. It's a necessary pursuit that you need to embark upon in order to have a fruitful, a God-glorifying relationship. Whereas you may afford not to pursue this with every Christian sister, every Christian brother, every pastor you know. In the matter of the man you have decided to marry, it is something you need to pursue. So I want to spend some time looking at what does it mean to be joined together in mind, which is the next stage of your journey after you feel God has led you to be married together, after you are convinced that yes, this is the will of God for us. How do you begin to marry your mind together? Now, the first thing from that verse, from verse 1, and we are going to check it from other versions as the Lord may lead us. Now, but before I read it, I still wanted to see another injunction in chapter 4. Chapter 4, and in verse 2, it says, I implore Euodia and I implore Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. To be of the same mind in the Lord. So there's an issue of being of the same mind, which is a basis for agreement, a basis for relationship, and a basis for going together. Now let me first try to define what I mean by the mind. The mind is a composite part of your life that determines the way you reason, the way you think, the way you your valuation, your conception or your concept of things, your definitions. It has to do with your preferences. It has to do with your tastes. It has to do with your appetite. It has to do with what you love or what you hate. All of these, they are rooted in the situation, in the way your mind is fashioned. Now, I want you to also know that since you were born, one of the things that is being trained as you went to school, as you read novels, as you even went to church, as you grew in your culture, in your tradition, they were setting your minds. They were putting certain things in your mind which has become part of your subconsciousness. Things that you do very freely without making effort. Now, this is the result of several years of your mind processing. Now, don't forget that because you did not grow together in the same house, and even if you did grow together in the same house, if you are born by the same parents, it is true that you may have a general commonness about how to look at things. Yet, there is the specific peculiarities of the different mind of different persons. All right. But granted now that you are realizing that you are coming from a different place, a different background, a different family, with a different exposure, with a different emphasis, it is very, very appropriate for you to know that your mind is set not on the same thing. And your perspective is not the same. So while you now want to get married together, there is this basic difference you need to know, that our minds were not trained alike. Our minds don't understand things alike. What will excite you may irritate your partner. what you will regard as something serious, as far as he is concerned, it may mean very little thing to him. And you say, but doesn't he care? No, the issue is the coming together of your mind. Now, so how does God want that joining together to take place? He said, therefore, if there's any consolation in Christ, if there's any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded. Now, so you see the word like-minded. That is to say that your mind has been reset to look alike. Now, that is something that I must tell you is not going to happen by the laying on of hands. That is not going to happen because somebody prophesied to you. Now, I believe that it will happen as you pray together. It will happen as you share together, if your spirit begins to flow together. If your spirit, you have achieved sameness or oneness of spirit. And since it is the spirit that actually influences a man's mind, largely, now we are sure that oneness of your spirit is going to help the oneness of your mind. But the fact that you are learning the same thing in the spirit does not also rule out the fact that your mind still need to be brought onto sameness, or what we call like-mindedness. He said, being like-minded. Then, as if he wants to amplify, what does he mean to be like-minded? He said, having the same love. Now, having the same love. Now, so this is beginning to show you what will help you in joining your mind together. One of the things that set people's mind the way it is set is the object of their love, is the object of their affection, is the object of their pursuit. Now, do you know that if your partner so much cherishes being a professor, an academic professor, and you, as a sister, the thing you cherish is being a businesswoman. Now, the two issue now is this. What your mind is set upon will be issues around business. And what his own mind is set upon, because his own love, his own object of affection is being an academician. He wants to be a professor. Now, you can now imagine, when the two of you are trying to come together, you quickly want to go to Onisha to go and buy some second-hand clothes to come and sell in the market and make some quick money. And it was going to take 3 days. Now, he is feeling that, look, if I just put those 3 days together, I know I will have gone a little distance in my research. And because of that, he needed much of his mind, much of his time to be in the laboratory. Now, the two of you are trying to get together in marriage. You want to dash to Onisha. He wants to be in the laboratory. You are talking about the color of a dress. He is saying, look, forget about that. I need to finish what I'm writing in research. Now, how will you do that? Does it mean because your mind are set on a different love? Could it mean then that God doesn't want you together? No. No. The issue is that if you are convinced that, yes, God wants me to go with this man, the next thing we need now to start looking at is, how do we adjust the object of our affection, the object of your interest, the object of your love? How do we bring the object of our love to become one? How do we begin to love one thing? Because it is when you have the same love, the same object of love, that your mind automatically begins to pull towards that thing together. Now, this object of love may even be the kind of ministry that you want to belong to. Now, if the mind of your fiancé is set on a different kind of ministry. That is what excites him. That is what makes him want to go sleepless night and do night vigil, because it is his excitement. But when, because your own love, your own affection is on a different kind of ministry, do you know what normally happens? When your partner switches to those things that he loves, you find yourself dozing because your mind is not there. You are not interested. He's talking about how he gets into the village and how the villagers are to be reached and all of this. And you just say, enough of all this stuff. Let's talk something serious. Now, to him, what can be more serious than the salvation of the villagers? Whereas in your own mind, what you are interested in is a different aspect of ministry. Now, if you don't want your marriage to scatter tomorrow, during your courtship, you need to begin to look at what is the object of our love. Say, having the same love. Then being of one accord. Now, you will notice that the word we are using here, being of one accord. The word accord comes out of a situation of cordiality, a situation of something that wins your heart and removes every argument and forms a cord around your thoughts. Now, in order for you to be able to flow together, because there is already a cord around your thoughts, a different cord around his thoughts, you just discover that your thoughts are following different channels. So, what is the word of God say now? We need to see the cords that our thoughts are attached to, and see how we can bring those cords together so that we can come into one accord. So that when we begin to release our thoughts, your thoughts seem to jump on the same line of thought, on the same line of consideration, on the same line of action. Now, these are the issues that bring you to become man and woman of one mind. Now, I want to say to you that the issue of becoming one mind, it's not something that happens in one day. It is very, very gradual. And it comes in this way. And you will see how Brother Paul began to put it. In verse 3 he said, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Now, what is the implication of this? The first thing is, if you are going to allow your mind to flow together, the first thing you need to do, number one, you must be willing to tap into the mind of your partner. That is, you must be willing to suspend your own thinking, your own mindset, in order to get our own mind, our own point of view. And what it means is that you will not, first of all, be antagonistic against her way of thinking. So this is where the issue of listening in the manner of conversation is very important. What do I mean by that? Now, you are already in courtship with this brother. You need to listen to him. You need to listen to what he says. Not just the words that comes out of his mouth. You need to listen in a way as to be able to touch the mind behind his words. You know, there are times you hear somebody said, I'm hoping to make progress. Now, the word progress is a simple word, you will think, but it does not mean the same thing in the mind of different people. Now, for him, progress may mean more money. But for you, progress may mean getting more spiritual. For him, progress may mean prosperity. For you, when you say, I am making progress, it may mean that you are getting more and more satisfied with what God has called you to do. Now, two people have used the same word progress, but in their mind, it doesn't mean the same thing. How will you now have one mind? The first thing is to listen. In order to understand the conception, in order to understand the definition, the valuation, and the peculiar understanding that this fellow is having, that guides is standing over that matter. Now, how do you do that? By listening. So when I talk about becoming one mind, joining your mind together, it means you will need to spend time to talk. You need to spend time to listen to each other, and to listen with an interest of trying to understand why my partner thinks, behaves, and feels the way he feels. Now, I want to say quickly that for a woman, that sister that you are trying to get engaged to, her own way of thinking, her mind generally as a woman is different from the way your own mind is organized as a man. And one of the things you will discover with a woman as you are beginning to relate together is that the things that affect her mind have to do with issues. You know, it may not be big issues. They may not be very, very principal issues. But you see, because the way our mind operates is that our mind cannot concentrate once there is a little distraction. And any little thing that comes, even if it is not important, it comes to settle on her mind, and except it is resolved, she cannot flow again. Whereas for you as a brother, your own mind is arranged in a way that you can concentrate on 3, 4, 5 things at the same time. It's a matter of switching from one to another. But the sister can't switch like that. So when you raise an issue, until she gets the end of it, she can't think of another one. So you can now imagine that when you are sitting down to discuss, you can open 3 windows at a time. You raise this issue, you raise that issue, you raise that issue. Then the sister is saying, no. Let's finish this one first. You are saying, no. We don't have to finish that. Let's do this. She cannot do that because her mind is necessarily arranged to focus on one thing at a time. And usually, the latest thing is the most important thing in the mind of a woman most of the time. Now, but how will you do that? The Bible says, 1, in lowliness of mind. The first thing to do to arrive at oneness of mind is that you must lower your mind. You must humble your mind. You must let your idea come down first so as to gain access onto what she has in mind. Your discussion must never be an argumentative issue. Now, you see, when 2 people are discussing and they enter into argument, I want you to know what happens there. It is that each one of them is holding to his own mindset and is trying to overcome the other person with his own mind. But the truth is that you cannot overcome another person's mind except you first of all allow the mind to unwind, to come out. When it has come out and the person feels satisfied that at least you have heard my way of thinking. If you are able, by bringing your own point of view, in a sense that she can see something better than what she's holding before her mind can be released to catch what you are saying. And this is what courtship, or what you see when you use the word courtship, it's like courting. It's like you are trying to woo the other person's mind to think the way you think. It doesn't happen by force. It comes as you patiently, first you must recognize the position the other person is coming from, even if you are going to change it. But now as a believer, the Bible says, in lowliness of mind, let each one of you esteem the other as better than yourself. Now, if you come with a mind that maybe what Jade is saying could be more reasonable than the way you have been thinking, and you are thinking like that, as to accord Jade, Sister Jade, a kind of esteem, and Jade is thinking that maybe Kunle's idea is better than mine, and she is willing to accord Kunle's idea a kind of esteem, you will discover that the two of you will arrive at a common time together. It demands exposing yourself to the same object. It means then that in your courtship, there's need to sit together and discuss very frankly with one another to be able to bear out your mind. And it is in this time of courtship that you learn each other person's definition. Now, how do you then change it? The Bible says in Romans 12, it says, but be not conformed to the standard of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, there's something we call the renewing of the mind by the word of God. There are certain things, certain ideas, certain tradition, certain idiosyncrasies that each one of you agree with. Now, how do you renew your mind? By exposing it to what does the word of God say. Now, renewal of your mind has to do with what you read. You remember that most of the things that your mind has set upon now is dependent on what you read. A lot of you that are planning to marry, I can imagine that some of you, before you gave your life to Jesus, you have read erotic books, books on romance, books on sex that are not from reality. They are fiction. They are things that people have written simply to arouse you. Some of you may have watched films that were arranged. You may be thinking that it is real, but it is an hypothesis. Just to condition your mind onto what they wanted to achieve. Now that you have become a Christian and you are now coming into a relationship, you may discover that some of those things, they are still resilient in your subconscious mind. And so as soon as this person comes into your life, you find those ideas are the expectation you are having about him. You are saying a husband should be like this, or my wife should be like this. So your idea of relationship is already formed by the kind of thing that your mind picked as you read all those books, or as you listened to stories, or as you related with friends and all of this. Now that you are coming into a relationship, the first thing is to renew, is to reformat your mind. Is to reset your mind with the word of God. Knowing that this sister is different from the one you saw in the film, the one you read in Adley Chase, the one you read in all those kind of books. And sometimes you even go pick some Christian novels. And these novels themselves, they are written out of a different culture, out of a different tradition. They say things that appear Christian, but no, they are just ordinary psychological principles. Now, before you can, succeed in your own relationship, you need to renew your mind with the word of God. So in terms of having one mind, there is need for renewal. You don't need to transfer your former idea into your relationship. It is possible that maybe before this time, before you came into this relationship with this particular sister, you were engaged with someone before and your engagement broke. And the kind of the sourness or bitterness that engagement left in your mind, unconsciously, you may transfer it onto this new relationship. Those things have to be renewed. And it comes as you spend quality time together in conversation. It comes as you study together, as you think together. Now, what else do we do? It talks about having one love. Now, you need to check what is the object of your affection. The two of you need to sit back and say, okay, what are my preferences in life? And you will submit all of that unto the authority of the scripture. Which means, during your courtship, there's going to be a lot of practical study in order to prepare for the future. You need to be able to determine what is the kind of standard you are pursuing. Do you know that one of the things you need to adjust is your eros? Now, there are several of you are coming into a relationship, but you have some eros. You have some people that have really won your heart. They are the people you want to be like. Sometimes it may be a singer. Sometimes it may be a preacher. Sometimes it may be someone in the society that has really affected you. And all through your years of growing, you have patterned your mind, your expectation, just to be like that person. Now, I do not say that is wrong, but when you come into a relationship, you need to submit your eros so that the two of you can look at it together and see whether, yes, you can make that person your pattern of life, your pattern of growth. Sometimes it's a family that one of you have maybe lived with, and you cherish the way they do things. You cherish the way they used to arrange their things. And in your subconscious mind, you are saying, this is how I want my marriage to be. Now, but in your courtship, maybe you did not discuss that. Or you did not expose your partner onto that your hero. Now you come into the relationship. She is trying subconsciously to pattern the marriage after a marriage she has seen somewhere. And the brother is looking for a different thing. There will be confusion. So the question we raise now is, there must be a liberty of opening your mind to be able to see what is the object, what is the subconscious connection in your mind. Now, this has to be done, not, you see, and even as I'm talking now, I'm being very analytical. It doesn't happen, by sitting down and say, okay, who are your heroes? It won't happen like that. But you see, while you are discussing together, while you are chatting together, you will suddenly discover that your partner's hero continue to reoccur in a discussion over and over and over and over again. If you go into her little collection of books, out of maybe 50 books she has, you may see more than 20 or 30 of that author in her collection. You won't say that doesn't mean, it means something. Now, if you go into a library of a particular sister and you find more than 35 titles of Kenneth Hagin in her library, will you imagine that you could ignore the kind of things that Kenneth Hagin has been teaching in her life? No. That shows that Kenneth Hagin's principle must have appealed to her. Now, you don't stand up and say, no, I don't like Kenneth Hagin. That's not how to deal with it. You first of all try to examine what attracts this sister to Kenneth Hagin's teaching. Now, it may be the brother that loves Brother Gbile's teaching. For example, you go into his connection, all the cassettes you find, more than 70% of the cassette collection is Brother Gbile's message. And you, a sister, say, who is this Gbile self? Now, you will run into trouble because you are ignoring something that has attracted the mind of your partner. So the first thing to do now is to try to enter into that situation and see whether what this brother is attracted to, whether it's real. And if you want to gain his mind, you will discover that anytime you want to get into the mind of that sister, you just pick one Kenneth Hagin book and say, God, as I was reading Kenneth Hagin on how to lose your faith, how to release your faith, you will see how she will be so excited. Say, look, let me bring you another one. Believer's authority. She will bring this. You are getting to her mind. And then she opens up more. She opens up more. Then she relaxes more. But if you come around and say, look, all this kind of thing, I don't like all this kind of thing, or put it aside. You know why you are waving your hand on those books and say, get away from all this? You know what you are simply doing? You are locking her mind. You are locking her mind. Suddenly she becomes frigid. Suddenly she becomes suspicious. She becomes defensive. Now, when you now raise your own object of affection, you see she's become antagonistic. Do you know why? Because her mind has been locked up. Because you threw away her own object of affection. So, but because you know you are going to go together, and you cannot stop her mind from functioning, you need to rather tap into her mind by trying to get what is the issue that her mind is surrounded with, and then try to unlock it. Even if you are going to change that object, you must first of all recognize that it is an object of affection. Otherwise, you cannot open it up. Now, I have just used this kind of illustration to show you. Now, the object of affection in the mind of individuals varies. And in fact, they are very diverse. They are very, very diverse. You cannot even predict it. It is only relationship, communication, communion, a time together, familiarity that will begin to unveil it gradually. You know, sometimes some people's affection is in language. There are people that they don't just like speaking straight. They just like to bring idiomatic expression. And when she's talking, in the middle of a sentence, you just put an idiom. And because you that don't understand idiomatic expression, he looks like an idiot to you. Now, so when she brings an idiom, you look and say, this is idiot. Now she said, what do you mean? What do you mean? And in order to express even her reaction, she brings another idiom. And you find that your communication is not going well. Now, all of this, you need to first of all, and your courtship is a good time. It's a good time to invest in bringing your mind together. Now, the other way may be for the two of you to look at, you see, for example, if sincerely you believe that the focus that God has given you is right, submit it and wait for God to show it to her, to convince her. So even in the joining together of your mind, apart from discussion, apart from conversation, apart from loosening the mind by respecting it, by esteeming it, you will need to still invest much in prayer and in study. Now, there's one more issue I want to raise in the issue of your mind. It is your intellectual ability to reason. Now, sometimes this becomes a difficult issue between husband and wives. The fact that maybe you are coming from a home where when your father says yes, your mother only shivered away to go and obey. You've never seen your mother answer your father and say, but what do you mean? Now, you are coming into a relationship and the girl is coming from a house where before any decision is taken, everybody argues around it and discusses it, and then we take the best option. And he doesn't see it as an insult. But you are coming from a home where once you say yes and somebody didn't say yes, sir, you regard it as an insult. Now, your mind is already set. So when you come in and say, we are going here, and the sister say, for what? Now, she's not arguing with, she's not opposing, she's simply saying, for what? What are we going for? But because in your mind you feel that anybody that should query something is an insult, you say, wow. For what? What do you mean by for what? I say we are going somewhere, you say for what? For what? Now, it becomes a quarrel. This is because, you don't understand that, you see, in her own mindset, she needs an explanation, she needs a reason in order to release herself into any action. Now, during courtship, you will begin to discover that. And that's what courtship ought to achieve. It is not after you get married. Are you hearing me? Because you see, I tell you the truth. You may get married today. And if God does not delay you, you may be pregnant next week. And if she's pregnant with the expectation of a new baby, with all the pressure, with all the adjustment, with all the vomiting and all of this. Now, the issue of your thinking together is immediately hampered because she cannot even concentrate on what you are saying now. And so many people, 3 years into marriage, they are not yet married. Some 5 years into marriage, they don't understand themselves because either they didn't have a good time in courtship or they did not use their period of courtship appropriately. Now, courtship is that time when you can mix your mind together by a gradual. And you know why it is better in courtship? There is not yet a binding commitment. Now, you see, the sister is free to express her mind because she knows that she's still free. After all, I'm not yet married. The brother is free to express his love, his affection, his hero, because he knows that after all, I'm not yet committed. Now, that's a good atmosphere where you can touch each other. But once you get married, there is a sense of feeling that way, you must obey me. And if you are only demanding obedience for a mind that is not yet conquered, a mind that is not converted, to her, it is just a mere slavery. And so many wives are thinking that their husband is just a tyrant. It's only forcing them to do things. And this is because at courtship, meaningful discussion, meaningful marrying, journey of their minds together was not done. Now, in order to join your mind together, I want to recommend that you must read the same kind of materials. Because we know that your mind is formed by the information you bring in. You need to access the same form of information. You need to read the same materials. If you find a book useful, pass it on to your partner to read. If you find a cassette challenging enough, why don't you get across to your partner, let her listen? If the two of you cannot sit down to listen together and access it together. If you find a preacher or a leader very inspiring, why don't the two of you listen together to him so that you can begin to develop the same focus, the same affection? Now, I say this to those of you that are in courtship. So I feel that during your courtship, if it is possible, why don't you invest time in listening to the same messages together and go to the same kind of meeting together when it is possible? When it is not possible, please don't force yourself. For example, if the sister is under her parents and they are very strict, they won't allow you to take her for a retreat in a faraway place. Now you can still achieve that by sharing notes, by sharing what God is blessing you with, by exchanging your library together. Now you are doing that, you are developing the same mind. Listen to me. Don't let the brother continue to go one place while you say, me, I don't like that, and you are open to marry. You will have problem tomorrow. Now, one of the next thing we are going to now look at, if you are succeeding, I use the word succeeding because it is going to be progressive. It does not happen at once. It will be growing gradually. Your first point of contact is not going to be the point of overall success. You are going to begin together. But of course, there's an interest in each of you. There's an interest that you have to be able to, relate with each other. That makes it very easy. Finally, let each of you look out, not only for his own interest. That's how to build this kind of joining together of your mind, but also for the interest of others. Look out for what is the interest of your partner. Don't always look out for your own interest. If you keep looking for your own interest, you will be selfish. You will only be insisting on what is convenient for you. But when you begin to look out for the interest of the other person, what do you think this sister is interested in? Can I try to shift my interest to her interest? You suddenly discover your mind will begin to fluctuate together by the grace of God. Now, let me come to the next level. Now, please listen. This journey together of your mind will continue until, a state will come by the grace of God in your marriage when, even when your wife just smiles, you will know what she meant. Now, this will come through communion and familiarity that grows with time. When she say, I'm happy, you will be able to know what she has in mind. But at the beginning, it may not be so. So I want you to have that at the back of your mind, but let your courtship begin to bring about such kind of experience by the grace of God. Now, the third level of joining, the joining together of your body. Now, I want to approach that in also various stages. Now, when I use the word body, I first of all want to talk about physical issues. Physical issues, joining together of physical issues before we touch your physical bodies. Now, the joining together, now as your spirit is joining together, as your mind is beginning to become one, as you are becoming like-minded, now the next stage is learning to maintain partnership in physical things. Partnership in working together. Now, for example, there is a particular project that you are interested in. It demands, handwork. It demands laboring. Now, part of what courtship ought to do is that you could share together in such physical things. Now, you see, a man is not only spirit, is not only mind, is also physical. And the way somebody reacts or responds to physical realities matters a lot. So in your courtship, I expect that you could take time to work together in certain things, to labor together on certain projects. Maybe he is following up a group of souls. As a Christian, as a sister, can you come along with him and see how he handles and what you can help to do? Maybe there are other young girls and you say, okay, let me handle this one. And as you are doing that together, physically, you are joining together. You are learning to do things together because you are going to do things together when you get married. Now, in the area of your physical properties, will you begin to learn how to join it together? Maybe you have a car. Could you begin to see how to make use of it together and see how you grow? Now, I am being very cautious in this aspect, in this angle. But since you are going to work together essentially, on various issues together, it means that those physical things, you should learn to share them together. You should learn to share together even your money. Now listen, I'm very careful here, and I want you to be careful, young girls and young brothers. Now, whereas it is part of your relationship in growing together to learn to share your money, to share food, to share materials. But don't forget that you are not yet married. In which case, even though you like to share your money together, don't forget that you are still under the leadership of your parents. A situation where you carry all your salary and you went and gave to this brother you are trying to marry, and your parents asking, what about that money? You say, well, Kunle is already using it. Now, that is not appropriate. Now, don't forget that you are still under the authority of your parents. You are still under the authority of your disciples. But in between that privilege, you can share together. You can share together. Now, sister, if this brother that is trying to marry you begins to show a sign of demanding for all of your salary even before you got married, and he went and spent it without you knowing, he has overstepped his boundary. You are not yet married to him. Are you hearing me? You are not yet married. You are not the one to sponsor him. Why you should be very, very, by the grace of God, very open-handed, very open in terms of sharing, this is what I have, this is what he has. Yet, don't forget that you are not yet married. He does not yet have the 100% right to use your things as he likes. Now, these are things you need to watch so that you don't create offense in between yourself. Now, but I'm talking about you learning to share together, learning to learn partnership in the things that you have, in the things you hold, in the things that God has given you. Now, why all this is going on, there is always going to be an attraction of you wanting to join your physical body together. Again, I want to say to you that even though that attraction is coming more and more because your spirit is being joined together, because your mind is getting excited about one thing together, don't forget that your physical joining together of your body in sexual relationship is only right after your marriage. Now, anything before your marriage is a distortion. So why there's that excitement, divert that affection into other things. Divert that affection which will be building up in your heart. It will be building. We must not deny that it will build up. It must build up. But as it is building, divert it, invest it into some other aspect of your relationship. Let it show in your tenderness of care. Let it show in your tenderness of consideration, in taking time to do things for each other as the Lord will provide you opportunity. Now, what again do we say about your physical coming together? Now, this coming together physically, now I've discussed your spirit, your mind, and all of this. There is a need of openness. Now, if there are issues, for example, you want to talk about how many children are we going to plan for and all of this. Now, these are all times to share, to discuss that. But then, in the issue of this physical contact, at what point do we begin to discuss the issue of your sexual relationship in the courtship? I want to say that there is a time when that should be discussed. But it must be very, very close to the time you are coming towards your wedding. Don't start discussing sexual intercourse the first day you start courtship. You are going to fall along the line because your mind is going to be over aroused and you will not face other issues that are of greater importance. Don't forget that, you see, your spirit, your mind, they precede your body. And if these two does not join properly, even sexual relationship in marriage just becomes a mere routine, and it's very, very, very painful. It doesn't bring satisfaction. So what am I trying to say at this point? I want you to note that at the point when you will need to look and study how to relate together as husband and wife, it must be towards the end of your courtship. But then it must not just be two of you discussing this. You will need to maybe discuss that in the presence of an elder, a leader, a counselor, someone that can guide you and instruct you and say, okay, this is how this goes, this is how that goes, before you get into wedding. Now, this will be one of those things you discuss towards the end of your courtship. If we have another time, I don't know whether we can have, we may need to talk about that. But if we don't, maybe when she brings questions for us to answer, we may tap into that. May God bless you and guide you in this. But let me say all this. Courtship is a preparation. It's a preparatory stage unto your wedding. Don't forget that wedding takes place in one day, but your marriage is for the rest of your life. So if you are talking of what will take the rest of your life, take time to prepare for it. Something you are going to eat for long, you don't rush at it. So my brother, don't rush your courtship. But you see, the duration of courtship don't have to be endless. It doesn't have to run for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. But issues that needed to be established during your courtship is what determine the duration of it. And if you are progressive in the issue we have raised, you will discover when the timing of God comes for your marriage. And I want you to know that God is willing to lead you at the right time for marriage. If we have another time to study, we may now look at the issue of the wedding itself and other questions surrounding it. May God bless you and guide you in this regard in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's pray together. Lord, we want to pray that the issues that we have raised on the issue of courtship, may you bless it. There are many things we could have discussed, but which we cannot undo now. But we pray that you will help your children with these principles, that they may learn how to walk in your presence and how to stand together until your glory breaks forth upon them. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen.
Amen. The period of courtship is to be focused under God. It is not meant for sin or frivolous activities. Remember that until you are married, you are not yet married. Make proper use of the time that God has provided for you, and you'll be glad you did. We shall be glad to share your experiences with you and answer your questions if you have any on the issues raised in these messages. Please send your letters to the Discipleship Department, Peace House, P.O. Box 971, Boko, Benue State, Nigeria. God bless you.